and welcome to Rotted Reviews, and today I want to talk about a movie that just came out on VOD platforms, the 2022 horror film from writer-director Neil 𝗘𝗾𝗄𝗼, House of Darkness. Now, before I get into this spoiler-free review, I do want to just reach out and say, if you've stumbled across my channel, you've been watching my videos, and generally have been digging my content, why don't you go ahead and click subscribe? That really would help me out a whole lot. So this movie primarily stars Justin Long and Kate Bosworth as a couple that met over happenstance. The movie opens up with them in the car as Justin Long is driving Kate Bosworth home. Presumably they had met at the bar and they're just kind of capping off the evening, at which point she invites him inside to have a couple more drinks.
Yeah, you sure? I mean, I'm happy to, but I don't want to be...
What?
No. What I mean is...
He's thrilled by the idea, and after the perfunctory hemming and hawing for politeness' sake, he does indeed go inside, and they have some drinks, and they talk. And that's the movie. Not really, that's purposefully myopic, but I do want to brace people and have some level of expectation in check, because a good portion of this movie, a significant percentage of this film, is usually just two people talking. As the evening goes on and the verbal sparring continues, the concept of deceptive talk hidden behind clever quips starts to kind of take on a little bit more of a sinister tone. From Justin Long's perspective, he's starting to have some red flags raised, but it's kind of weighing the options between which of his two brains he's going to be listening to. I have to say that at the end of the day, I enjoyed this movie, but not nearly as much as I was honestly hoping for. I watched the trailer earlier and I was kind of full of intrigue, and I wasn't quite expecting the movie that I got, which is another reason that I did want to just kind of establish some level of expectations. For me, I think that that's one of the pitfalls of watching trailers, is not necessarily spoilers. I mean, yeah, that's a real issue to be sure, but more just kind of going into a movie with preconceived notions based on what the trailer laid out for me, and then having to kind of reconcile that as the movie actually unfolds. So again, I did enjoy this one, but it wasn't the movie that I was really expecting when I clicked play. And I do think that there are going to be a lot of people that find this to just be too slow and too dry. For me, it was kind of fascinating and interesting once I started to kind of recognize what type of movie this was and, you know, start to really kind of get into it. For the most part, what I was looking at, and I think one of the most central themes of this film, is meaning what you say. So much of this kind of reminded me of a tactic that I had heard of and have employed in the past when dealing with people that are using racist jokes. Seems like a bit of a weird stretch, but hear me out. One of the best ways to kind of deal with things like that is to pretend, or at the very least, you know, not really understand the humor and ask it to be explained. You know, if somebody makes a racist joke or based on stereotypes or something, you know, anything along those lines, basically, you know, like, I don't understand. Why is that funny? And just have it, you know, brought back into their court to be deconstructed, and then have people face their own prejudices without the veneer of cleverness masking what they really feel. And that happened a lot in this movie. Not the racist jokes thing, but the clever quips masking and obscuring the intentions that actually are brewing underneath, the kind of lines that a man will throw out to try and get a woman in bed, and then having it just kind of brought back into his court. Well, what did you mean by that? You said this. What did you mean? If you didn't mean that, then why did you say that? And a constant level of awkward deconstruction happening therein, which was a fascinating watch for me, but again, not exactly what I was expecting for the majority of the runtime. And the thing that I enjoyed about that is we basically did have, well, like I said earlier, a verbal sparring session. We had a bit of a cat and mouse situation, but it was at no point really entirely understood who was hunting who, and to what end. The intentions of Kate Bosworth's character in particular were rather fascinating to watch unfold, shrouded in mystery and kind of not really knowing at any given point just how much power she was controlling this conversation with. You did get the sense that anytime Justin Long took the lead in the conversation, it wasn't because he grasped it, it was because he was allowed to have it. If I had one major complaint about this movie, and it's not a spoiler, but it kind of leads to a spoiler, I guess, a little bit. And for me, that is the crux of my complaint, is every once in a while, this movie seemed to be just a little bit too clever for its own good with some winks and nods. And for the most part, that played out well, and I didn't mind it. But when we're dealing with things like the character names, it really does kind of broadcast some things home with having the reveals brought out ahead of time. And that was the case with this one. I really don't want to be, again, spoiling anything. But when two character names in particular popped up, it was like, well, of course, this is what's happening. Or at the very least, generally, this is the nature of the type of movie that we're taking on. And at that point, it does really kind of become knowing just how much power any one particular person had in any given situation. And again, the discrepancy between how much power they took and how much power they were allowed to take. Look, if a horror movie where the majority of the runtime is simply two characters talking to each other doesn't sound appealing to you, I get it. That's an awfully big ask, but for me, I did find the deconstruction, even the awkward deconstruction of intentions and dialogue with multiple layers happening in the conversation to have that kind of dance or sparring session. I found that to be fascinating. I enjoyed that, but that dryness and the lack of action did kind of prohibit me from making a full blanket recommendation. I do have to readily admit that this easily could have been a short film, or at least one entry in an anthology. This really seems like it could have been just a single episode of Tales from the Crypt or Creepshow, and instead it just got stretched so long. But given that, I actually kind of have to tip my hat to it for holding my interest and only slightly feeling a bit diluted with the stretched out runtime. If somebody wanted to make the argument that this did not have enough meat on it for a full-length motion picture runtime, I honestly wouldn't have much of a counterpoint to that. I would have to agree. But I still found it an interesting watch, and if that sounds like the kind of thing that is up your alley, then yes, I do fully recommend it. I just can't really give it a blanket recommendation for all horror movie audiences out there. I just don't think that there's quite enough happening to hold some people's interest. But that's okay. We all have different likes and dislikes and tastes, and that's what makes up the spice and the stew of life. So that should about do it for this review of House of Darkness. Thank you so much for joining me here today. I look forward to seeing you on my next video review. Remember, next time you want to watch a horror movie, first make sure that it's good and rotted.